I'm giving you these superpowers. You don't need the superpowers to fly through the air and bend steel with your bare hands. We're not being invaded by aliens from another planet. We're being invaded by these diseases that are dangerously destroying people across the modern world. And you have now the superpowers to help people, both physically and emotionally, intellectually, and also health, to prevent these health tragedies. And you have a possibility of having superpowers to benefit the world and future generations. But you can only do that if you take great care of your health. To review these dark faces of addiction now we're learning here, we're talking about the dopamine stimulation from fast food calories causing eventual cravings, where you're thinking about food and not feeling good unless you have those foods all the time, just like a craving for alcohol or cocaine or drugs. That the withdrawal symptoms include anxiety and make you hyper-irritable and more easily angered and threatened and annoyed by the world around you. Instead of being more appreciative of the world around you and more happy, you're looking in a more negative aspect, because the withdrawal symptoms from food makes you more irritable because your brain has chronic inflammation and you're somewhat in a brain fog all the time. And the bliss point, where food scientists have designed to highly sweetened foods with both sugar and honey and maple syrup and artificial sweeteners, they still have the effect to affect the bliss point. They're not just having you like food, they want to push you up to a dopaminergic state of bliss. So you're making you into a food addict, so you're desirous of that food, which then weakens your taste buds. And now natural foods like strawberries and carrots don't have much, and cashew nuts and lettuce and avocado has no flavor. Natural foods have no flavor because you've weakened your taste by striving for higher mouth and tongue stimulation. You're chronically unsatisfied. You're never feeling well unless you overeat and stretch out your stomach. When you go to sit down at a meal, you don't feel like you had enough food unless you stuffed yourself to the point of being full in a pathologic way. You got to keep eating food until you feel like your stomach, like you overate, in order to even feel like you're okay to stop eating. That's abnormal. You become emotionally dependent on dangerous food. And then these addicts, including the number one addiction in America is food addiction, behave and think irrationally. And they're able to be continually destructive to themselves and others. They're not eating for their own benefit, they're eating for their own destruction. And therefore, they cannot care about other people. They don't care about themselves, and they don't care about other people. They don't care about protecting the world, the environment, for our children, for future generations. They don't care about anything except gleaning as much narcissistic claims that they can get for their own narrow purposes. It makes them more selfish and narcissistic. And food had something to do with that. This is like Eric Clapton, who said sugar was his gateway drug, but really it's true. People who are alcoholics or drug addicts, they don't get rid of their addictive behaviors. Because in this society, they only switch from one addictive behavior to another. They go from drug addiction to donut. They go from alcoholism to, what do they serve at the alcoholics meeting? They start eating donuts and cookies and soft drinks, right? People go from one addiction to another, and they start out as children because the parents get their children addicted to junk food. What's Halloween except a celebration of cocaine and heroin use, basically? Get your kid as addicted as they can to unhealthy substances, making them think it's fun to self-abuse themselves with drugs. And then withdrawal depression happens when the toxic substance leaves the body. And of course, even mildly depressed mood can then trigger the use of abusive alcohol and drugs. And obviously, most people who are alcoholics or drug users obviously have some degree of overlap with emotional problems too. And it's all intertwined like fibers of the cloth. We have a nation of food addicts that our whole country could answer yes to some of these questions that define food addiction. You fail to cut back on your food intake even though you're overweight? Why don't you just eat less? Because you can't. Then you're an addict. Why can't you eat less? Why wouldn't you want to eat less? Why would you behave in a manner not in your own best interest? Do you experience cravings? Do you Does overeating interfere with work or home life? Do you continue eating foods you know are damaging to your health? Do you spend a lot of time thinking about food? Are you failing to take your life and develop passions and creativities and expertise and knowledge that's outside of the realm of food that you could really enjoy and add to the world and your own enjoyment in life? The American dietary exposure creates distorted and emotional relationship with food and emotional severe consequences that make people emotionally unstable, that can't weigh evidence and think logically about any subject. And these are the people that are voting in our elections. Now, the subconscious mind hates change, and emotional eating makes your emotionals worse. What I'm saying is that the addictions take on a life of their own. And you've lost the keys to the bank. Because instead of your cerebral, logical brain controlling your behavior, your primitive brain now is taking over the cerebral brain, and you're thinking of almost irrational and illogical excuses why it's okay to continue to do what you're doing. So some of you listening to me talk and say, oh, this sounds really good, but I'm not going to eat that way because I'm to this, I'm to that. My family, my work schedule, my travel schedule. The primitive brain always comes up with an excuse, as illogical and crazy as it may be. A person, so you're like sitting here listening to me speak, and you could say, well, yeah, it sounds pretty good, but I'm not going to ever eat like that. I'm going to just go right back to my old diet again after hearing all this information. Because the addiction doesn't want to die. You are not the best decision maker for your own life. You can't behave you can't think in a matter and make the right choices for your life when you've developed an addictive brain already. And sometimes people need help to stop smoking, to stop snorting, to stop shooting up with heroin, and to stop going to fast food restaurants and eating processed foods. Sometimes you need help. And sometimes you have to ask for help. And get the ashtrays out of your environment, and don't hang out in bars if you're an alcoholic. Don't hang out. You have to develop a protective environment for yourself and get away from those addictive triggers that are calling your name, because you've already had this illicit love affair with these rich foods that are hurting you, and you have some hidden part of yourself that doesn't want to give that up, and you have to face the reality that part of yourself has become distorted or in a way that's no longer emotionally healthy because you still want to damage and hurt yourself. Because if you were really thinking logically, you'd want to do everything that would help yourself and help you be healthy and live longer and be a better and more fuller person and a more fuller and happier human. So what I'm saying to you right now is an excuse is no excuse. There's no reason why that you shouldn't put the best foods in your mouth, and you shouldn't seek out the best opportunity to protect your health and be the healthiest version of yourself, the most fully intellectual, creative, and best person you could possibly be. And that's, of course, so there's no reason why you can't, there's no excuse that holds up to scrutiny here. Overeating is an ethical dilemma. It's not just about yourself. Because look, we learn to eat wrong here, we become addicted, but we'll learn to behave wrong too. In this country, and many parts of the world, not all the parts of the world, but many parts of the world, we're looked to feel like we're better if we can make ourselves feel better than some other group or other person. We're not just trying to be the best person we can become and be the most kind and compassionate and loving and contributing person to the other people's benefits and to the world and make people, we're not trying to benefit humanity, we're trying to be better than other people. You got to get in the best school, make the most money, be the best athlete, beat out somebody else, be competitive with them, and it's good if you could make less of them. If you could make less of people that don't have your religion, your country, your background, your genetics, your skin color, if you can make less of some other people and feeling you're superior to them, that's encouraged in this country too. It's all about beating some other person out. And that means people in this country too much are thinking about their own self-esteem by looking how other people are seeing them. They're trying to look impressive to another person. They're trying to impress other people. They're trying to have other people glean their self-esteem from feeling they're better or bigger or more special in some way. Instead of their self-esteem coming from their ability to be compassion, to have kindness, because your happiness ultimately is based on your ability to care for reality, how much you love the world around you, including the wonder and beauty of nature, of art, of other humans, of communicating with people and caring for other people and loving and feeling for other people. And having emotions of good feelings because you care and feel for other people and you care for the world around you and you're passionate about all the things you love in the world around you. It's your feeling of being able to love things that are outside of your own self, whereas we're learning in this country it's all about loving the self. They always say, love yourself first. And we're always worried about pleasing some other person because you want that other person to look at you favorably. Having a person look at you favorably is not really good for your self-esteem. It's going after self-esteem in some perverted way. And why am I telling you this anyway? What does this have to do with changing your diet? I'm telling you this because it's the reason why people fail and they can't make this change, because when they go back home they spend a week with me or a month with me and they learn a lot of information and they feel like they're actually liking the food, their taste buds are changing, but they go back into their world. Like we used to do this a lot because I remember that Whole Foods Market used to pay us money to put people in a week in a hotel with me and my staff. For a whole week, we'd be lecturing and training them. And these were people who were unhealthy, eating unhealthy food, and usually overweight and sickly. And they'd go home, and most people would go back to their old way of eating and go, how could they possibly do it? How could they possibly learn all this information and still go back to self-abuse like that? And the reason is because they didn't have enough training in changing the personality of who they are, and changing their motivation and their desire for self-esteem, because they're still looking, because when they go back, they get this negativity from their home environment, from people in their work and their family, and they're still trying to fit in, be socially connected by looking for other people's approval. And it's desire for the approval of other people that interferes with your ability to do what's best for yourself. To be able to aesthetically put together compassion for yourself and compassion for others, you have to be unique. You have to be able to be comfortably being different and unique, because you're not going to fit into the American way of eating and the mold of the other people around you. So unless you're comfortably being different and behaving differently, you're not going to succeed with this. And unless you see this as an opportunity to have a good effect on other people. See, it's not making yourself look good in front of them. It's having the power to have a good effect on them. And unless you're consistent in your ability, in your behavior, they're never going to respect unless you achieve good health, and unless you're consistent in the way you behave, and unless your response to their negativism is not trying to protect your own ego with an immediate response to argue with them or fight with them, but accept around now that you can think creatively and say, well, what would be the response that would have most goodwill for them? How could I respond in a way that has a potential to maybe have them have a better effect on their life? Because it's not about me anymore. I don't need to have them see me positively. I don't need to have them see me favorably. I'm just thinking about how I can help them in some way. How you can be kind to them. Because I'm giving you these superpowers. You don't need the superpowers to fly through the air and bend steel with your bare hands. We're not being invaded by aliens from another planet. We're being invaded by these diseases that are dangerously destroying people across the modern world. And you have now the superpowers to help people, both physically and emotionally, intellectually, and also health, to prevent these health tragedies. And you have a possibility of having superpowers to benefit the world and future generations. But you can only do that if you take great care of your health and if you're a role model of good health. So you have this opportunity to have a superpowers to get in great health, to be super healthy compared to other Americans, and to be respected for that, and then to have your words and your thoughts and your actions have a positive effect on other people. And it doesn't matter if other people don't do what you do, and it doesn't matter if you go home and people look at you with a little bit of discomfort, because you're going to make people uncomfortable because you're not doing what they're doing. And you don't care if you please them or you get the right approval from them, because you know you have an opportunity over time to have a goodwill on people, to have a good effect on people around you in your community, and at the same time taking good care of yourself. So I'm saying right here that having poor self-esteem makes being different from other people more difficult, and that poor self-esteem developed because you were trying to elevate your own worth in the eyes of others and not have value in your own worth comes from your ability to have goodwill for others. You're not looking to have people look at you good. You're looking to feel good about yourself because your actions, your thoughts, and your behaviors are trying to be kind to the world around you. So you're not trying to inherently put yourself in some elevated position. You're going to feel better about your life and yourself because you're more compassionate and are able to take better care of yourself, so you can then pursue your passions. I'm saying right now, you can't change your weight permanently until you change your thinking. And that requires some self-reflection, self-improvement, and ongoing learning and growth to build self-esteem with compassion for yourself and others simultaneously, and learn how to be a leader, not a follower. If you're a follower, you can't do this because you're not going to follow along with the way other people are behaving.